The Rosie and Bill Show wish to thank our primary sponsors. The Mallon Agency, located in Springfield, PA, where they take pride in exceeding expectations every time.
The Roselli Agency. Brian and his team of insurance professionals have been serving the needs of Chester County for more than 2 decades.
Anthony DeCecco and our friends at Tennis Addiction are ready to serve all your tennis needs at their beautiful facility in Exton, PA.
She don't look for all my faults. She don't point out when I'm wrong. She could leave me when I'm gone, but she don't let me go when I'm going through hell. When life feels like a prison cell, when I could give up on myself. She don't.
Hi everyone, welcome to the Rosie and Bill Show. From his home state of Arkansas to Nashville, Tennessee, to the great state of Texas, our guest this evening has been putting in the work and putting out great music for years. Please welcome to the Rosie and Bill Show singer, songwriter, and rising country music star, David Adam Byrnes. Hi, David. Welcome to the show.
Hey, thank y'all for having me.
It's our
David,
pleasure.
it's our pleasure. We're so glad to have you, and we're looking forward to getting to know you. And we thought we would start with something that happened quite a ways back when you attended your first George Strait concert. We understand that it had quite the impact on you. So what was it about George's music that impacted you the way it did? Or what resonated with you so much about his music, and how much did it impact you personally and musically?
Well, I was 3 years old, so I can't say that I truly know what part of the music it was that affected me. But for some reason, my parents took me to that concert. It was my first show, and I don't know. From that day on, I wanted to be like George. And I remember being a little kid. There's people to this day that didn't even know my name. They knew me as Little George. So, but as I grew older, I just reflected, and reflect is probably not a word that makes sense. I just fell in love with that Texas honky tonk sound, and a lot of the '90s, in general, that was the kind of music, and obviously it was influenced by him and guys like Randy Travis. But when I listened to the radio every morning with my dad, that's what you heard. And so I'm not one of them artists that grew up listening to every genre, all these different ones. I mean, in our house, it was country or bust. So it might have been a little bit more of it was forced down my throat, but I embraced it instead of rebelling, and that's the kind of music I've always loved since.
But when did you start actually playing or expressing an interest in playing an instrument or learning and singing and all of that?
I mean, honestly, right then, I would stand up on people's fireplaces when I'd go to my mom and dad's friends and start singing. I would go on the back porch. I don't know if y'all saw that viral video of the little kid back there with his fake guitar and stuff. I mean, that was me. I laughed so hard when I saw that. But when I was 5, my dad had a little group with his work that would go around the nursing homes and just, a bunch of guys with guitars. It wasn't truly a band, I would say, but I started going with them, in kindergarten, and every Monday night playing at the nursing homes and retirement centers around Central Arkansas. And, I started doing talent shows and just, anywhere that I could have a chance to sing. But as far as really getting out, getting a guitar and really playing, I broke my leg the last day of spring football practice, my 9th grade year. And that's when I learned how to play guitar. So it was a blessing in disguise. And so my junior year, I put my very first band together and really started going around and playing. I called it the backyard tour. We'd play anybody with a backyard to let us come play. And then that kind of led to a few of the little, dive bars. And by the, my senior year, I was out playing clubs. I remember I would throw off my pads on Friday night and we'd hightail to wherever the show was. And so, it's pretty much all through high school. It was always music somewhere.
Well, but you just segued right into the next question. What's this about you opening for Hank Williams Jr. the night of your graduation?
Yeah, I got the phone call. They said, would you have any interest in being an opener for Hank Jr.? I was like, let me think about it. Yeah. But it happened to be right the same night as my high school graduation. So luckily, the last name Burns is in the B, so I was one of the first ones to be able to walk across the stage. But I had about three or four of the teachers that kind of knew what was up, so I could walk across, get my diploma. I threw up at deuces, ran out a back door. I remember my sister met me somewhere in the hallway of that arena. It hit me. I was like, the whole point of graduation is to throw the hat in the air. So I just threw my hat at her, jumped in. I was throwing on my Wranglers as we're going down the road. My dad's Mr. You do everything by the book. I think that's the one and only time he's ever sped trying to get me across the Arkansas River to the Little Rock side. And yeah, that was a cool experience. And man, little did I know that was kind of the tone setter from life after high school.
Your father must have been so proud.
He was, I guess he's kind of one that instilled this with me. I always kind of laugh and say, most kids watch Big Bird and Barney and stuff. No, my dad had on the country station until he went to work, and then I'd flip over to TNN and watch videos. So I don't know. It's always kind of been our thing.
That is absolutely amazing. Do you, looking back, was there anything that you can say as an artist, as young as you were at the time, that you kind of learned from being there with Hank Jr.?
Don't drink too much before you play. uh, uh, I mean, that was honestly probably the biggest thing of it. But now, for me with Hank Jr., one thing I've always been impressed with is just how well versed of a musician he is. I mean, it made me want to be able to play my guitar the best I could. I mean, he picks up a fiddle, he plays guitar. I mean, piano. There's not an instrument he doesn't pick up. And so I don't know if there's anything I took from that show that day. It was just how impressed I was with that. Now, as I say that, guitar is the only thing that I do play besides singing. But it just, I don't know, it opened my eyes to that musician side of things that really made me want to focus on that when I made the move to Nashville, which I'm sure I'm jumping questions already again on you.
Yeah, you are. You're very intuitive.
Did you see our notes?
No, but I chugged a coffee and it ain't my first rodeo. So I'm feeling it, man.
So what was that experience like for you? Because you left when you were like, what, 19? You packed, did you drive or fly there? Did you pack up the car?
No, I drove. I didn't go in blind. My mom and dad begged me to do the college thing. So literally, I did the Hank Jr. show, and I think that following Monday, well, no, that was Memorial Day weekend. But anyway, sometime that next week, I had a friend of mine that, I say friend, someone that became a friend over the years, took me to Nashville and just introduced me to a few people. So meanwhile, I entertained the college idea that lasted a whole half a semester and wasted a lot of money. But so I had met some folks and I wasn't completely blind. And so I remember I was kind of in that crossroads. I knew I wanted to go to Nashville. Mom and dad, my dad, you got to have a plan. There's got to be, you can't just pack up and go somewhere not knowing anything. And so, I was still playing all the clubs at home. We had a weekly show in my hometown at our Mexican restaurant called Casa Mexicana. And that was really where we built this thing up. I mean, it was Tuesday night. It would be a line out the door trying to get in this place. And I remember the guy that ultimately got me to move was originally supposed to have been the fourth member of Rascal Flatts. And so when he called me, he was like, man, he goes, you need to just quit making trips. It's time to do it. And right when he called me, the Flats came on the TV. So I told him yes. I'd already sent him the money for the first month's rent and all that, but my mom and dad didn't know until I showed up for that last Tuesday night concert. I was like, by the way, y'all, this is the last time we'll be doing this. I'm moving to Nashville next week. So I don't know. I just jumped in blind and went and hit the ground running. I mean, I remember that first night I was there, I got to meet people that wrote some of the biggest hits for Tim McGraw and Kenny and people like that. And just, I don't know, from day one, it was just an instant, this is where I'm supposed to be, and off to the ground running.
Wow.
Well, and then it sounds like you got to work with some really talented, well, obviously I think in Nashville, there's nothing but talented songwriters, but I read where you did have a chance to work with some of the best while you were there.
I did. I mean, I still do to this day. Obviously, it's a little more Zoomish than in person, but I made it a point. I don't know why I knew this when I was so young, but just to be a sponge. So, that first year was really me learning how to be a musician. You got to play with, it's Monday night and you're playing with Toby Keith's band because they're just looking to make side hustle money when they're off the road, So I got to be around the best of the best, and that led to meeting people. I mean, it all really started at the Fiddle and Steel Guitar Bar. That was where I met my crew. I met a guy named Rick Tiger that became my first songwriting mentor, and I met Jay Brunswick, who's been my go-to best friend since that day. And it just kind of, you found your circle, and then you got in a better circle, and then a better circle. And then, that all leads to my first publishing and record deal. And all of a sudden I'm getting to be in the room with guys that I honestly, in that first year or two, really didn't have any business being in the room with, but I'm glad I was. So I just learned from them. And as I matured, I became more active in the room, and really started honing my craft as a songwriter. But even on the writing, man, I really give credit to my very first creative director at my publishing company. I was one of the last breed that really, really got taught the craft of songwriting. And so I learned the difference in just saying a lyric and really being poetic and painting pictures. And I'm so thankful for that opportunity that I had.
Well, it sounds like it's really paid off.
Exactly.
It absolutely did. It absolutely did.
Now, David, in 2013, right around that time, kind of a new chapter started, and a new relationship was born for you when you met and started working with Trent Willman. And then a whole lot of things started really happening after that. I mean, is it safe to say that that relationship and that time frame kind of paid off for you?
Well, it did, but you know what? 2013 was really actually when things kind of seemed like it was good and got really dark. I didn't actually meet Trent until about 2017, I would say.
Okay.
So 2013 is when, well, let me rewind back. I talked about signing that first deal. It was a record and a publishing deal. And you're 19, you're naive to the world. You just hear somebody pumping your head full of, you're about to be the biggest thing since sliced bread. You believe every word of it. And all of a sudden you get the rug ripped out from underneath you, and you're back to square one. And right then was when the whole bro country movement was coming about. And so all I knew is I wanted another publishing deal and a chance in town. And so I was writing music I really was embarrassed of. I had this long hair. I was dressing like you would imagine. And that was kind of a dark time for me, because in that time, I got out of that publishing deal, and then you find out, due to the legalities and as in the words of every lawyer I talked to, the worst deal they had ever seen in their entire careers. I was stuck. I couldn't sign another publishing deal. I was about to have about 4 or 5, cuts as a songwriter, and they were all supposed to be singles. And when I found out I couldn't sign the next publishing deal, they all just disappeared. And all of a sudden, all these friends and everybody that's riding with him, your cheerleader, disappear. And I was kind of just on my own. And but that was the biggest blessing in disguise. My buddy Arliss Albritton was managing and tour managing a bunch of acts. And so I just start hopping on the bus and help sling merch. And if I got to get out and go play for 15 minutes while they were changing out, I did. But that's where I started learning the road and kind of getting out of Nashville and learning the true road dog stuff. And in the middle of that, man, Trent's definitely a big part of it, but Daryl Singletary, that's the guy that changed my life. I ran into him, and he looked me up and down and just was like, what in the heck is this? And what are you doing? And he point blank didn't sugarcoat. He goes, you're one of the last few that gave me hope for country music, man. Like, get back to your roots. And that stung. It really stung. And so that's what I did. And, the more and more I got out, I started being able to play and, meeting these venue owners when I'm out with these other guys on the bus, and they asked me to come out and play. And in that time, I started going back and doing my true country stuff I was proud of. And every night people were coming up, man, thank God, real country. And so I just kind of said, all right, well, doing it their way ain't working. Let's do it my way. And, somewhere in there you insert Trent Willman, which, I'm not gonna act like I didn't hunt him down. When I realized that was the man behind the whole Cody Johnson sound, I was like, that's the music I want to be doing. That's people are buying this guy. Why is this town not buying into it? And so I met Trent. We wrote a couple of songs, and after that, that led to him and me really building that relationship to where he ended up producing that Neon Town record, and that was really the beginning of everything that's happening now.
Well, David, it's a running theme with a lot of our guests, but in general, in life, you've got to seek your own truth. You just do. Because when you're trying to fit in to other people's molds, they don't know what to do with you.
No, they don't. Well, and that's the thing with Nashville, and it's complicated because they always want something new, but they're terrified of something new until they see it work. And You know, at that time, something new was just going back to doing real country music. You know, I'll never forget that quote you see by Marty Stewart all the time as a meme. It said the most outlaw thing you can do in Nashville is put out country music. And so I just set out and said that's what I was going to do. I was going to ride or die by it, and that was fine by me. I was at least happy and not embarrassed of the music I was making again.
Right. You don't want to be embarrassed. I mean, that's a hollow victory,
Yeah,
right?
it really is. I mean, you know, it's don't get me wrong, my bank account would have liked all those cuts and all the stuff that might would have came with doing that music, but it wasn't music I would have been proud of.
Right. Well, you have a lot to be proud of because we understand that your first 7 singles went to #1 on the Texas radio charts and that your songs have been streamed over 10 million times. What is going on?
It's like you said, getting back to my roots, and I'll even correct you. That number just moved to 8 here about 2 weeks ago. As Keep It with
Okay.
the
All
Cowboys
right.
finally hit #1. But you know, I'm so thankful. It really goes back to once again Trent. You know, I begged him to beg Cody to let me open up this one show up in Northwest Arkansas that I wanted to get on the bill on, and so they did. And that night led to the next 3 months of opening it up for all these different Texas acts, and starting that Kojo night all the way to the Aaron Watson one. Somebody, whether it was the artist himself, band member, crew member, you know, somebody would come up to me and like, man, you ought to come to Texas. I think you'd do well there. And finally, like I said, that last night with Aaron Watson, I heard it again, and I packed up and I moved here. And man, it's best decision I ever made. And the main thing with here is it gave me the chance to always kind of laugh when I say it, but I unbrainwashed myself. I had to learn how to write this kind of music again. You know, you spend so long in the machine being told do this, do that. If it's not this content, this sound, and you know, I think it really took me about a year and a half, 2 years before I really felt like I was back to being me. But it really shows on these newer projects. But that Neon Town was the beginning of it. But it's like you said, it's music I love. It's music I'm proud of, and you know, I feel like I'm truly writing stuff I relate to ever since then.
And David, I'm so glad you said that, because one of the things that really jumped out at me as I started listening to more and more of your songs, and it reminded me of the duet of Joe and Martina, who we had on the show a year or so ago. They had a big hit a few years ago called "Give Me Back the '90s." And when I listen to your music, it takes me back to that kind of '90s sound where relatable lyrics and great hooks, great message. You know, it's just really good, actually great country music. So I was curious what you just kind of touched on it, to get back into that mode of really just being yourself and writing as who you really were. How did you really go about just doing that? Or as you said, like kind of unlearning and relearning? I mean, what was that process really like for you?
Well, I'll tell you, #1 is I didn't write. I didn't write at all. It really, it was right around the time that COVID happened that I actually started writing again. It was more just because, well, there wasn't nothing else to do. But man, once again, I don't know why I've always been good at this whole being a sponge thing and just observing and watching. But I got here, you know, I didn't even realize till I got to Texas of why it never really worked. Even, you know, when I was in Nashville, for instance, there were guys that were doing, you know, quote unquote traditional country, but it wasn't the same stuff I was doing. It was more of the kind of outlawy stuff. You know, it wasn't really that true Texas honky tonk. And so I got here and just got to be around the culture and be around the artist and slowly learn and just, you know, when I got here, I wanted to know about every part of the scene and where it all came from. And the more I did that, the more I realized, well, think about it. Who's my biggest influences? George Strait, Tracy Lawrence, Mark Chestnut, you know, all of that music came from here. And to me, you know, really the '90s and the cowboy hat guys, that was just Texas country on a mainstream platform. And so I just got back to my roots, and then I started finding other artists, you know, Randall King, Cody Johnson, Jake Worthington, you know, all these guys that I finally was around people that did the kind of music and the same stuff that I want to do. And so it was encouraging. And so listening to them inspired me to want to write. And even more, getting out of the machine and just writing real life. You know, people all the time complain about everything in Nashville kind of sounds the same. Well, you know, and this is no knock on the guys that are there. I've got a lot of buddies making a living off of it. But when you're in that scene, all you really know is party, chase girls, get drunk, wake up, write a song. Party, chase girls, get drunk. And it's how do you relate with the average person when that's your life? You write what you know, and you almost forget what normal real life is. And so I think being thrown into that here helped me get back to my roots. And I mean, that's the content that the 90s was writing about. And so it's just kind of get back to being real again.
What inspired your song She Don't?
So I'm going to go backtrack on that one. So I actually wrote that when I was still in Nashville. We had just finished recording the Neon Town record. And funny story, me and Trent were sitting down and picking out songs. Of course, you got to remember, I had 11 years to write that entire thing because most of them songs were too country, according to the label, from the first record I made. And I'll never forget, Trent had just stopped. He was just grinning ear to ear going through these songs. And he goes, I bet you got a lot of dudes at your shows. It's like, what the heck is that supposed to mean? And he said, man, there ain't a love song in this entire batch. And, at that time of my life, I was like, well, I ain't really had a reason or inspiration for that. And so I get in the room with Billy Montana and Frank Myers, which, that was another one of them days where I'm going to take credit for being in the room. But I was in with some very heavy hitters that knew how to write a lot better than I do. And I kind of sponged on that one. But we just got on a great idea. And one thing I pride myself on is being able to just put myself in a mental situation to write a song, even if I've never lived it, and so we've all thought we've been in love at some point or another, of course, I'm jumping ahead now, being engaged now, I truly understand that song, where at the time I really didn't, but I just knew it was a great song, but I never really related to it. And honestly, if you heard the demo we did, I never would have cut that song until now either. I mean, it was straight bro country vibes as far as the way it got demoed, but you fast forward to now, and I started kind of digging through some of my back catalog and see if there was a hit that I'd missed, and I came across that song, and it's just me and Amanda to a T. And musically, I knew, the fiddle, the steel, I knew how to strip it down, and it's a very pop melody, it really is, but I knew how to produce it and make it country music the way I think it needs to be, and so it was just the perfect timing.
Well, it'll be interesting to see how many more love songs come out from you now that you're in this relationship.
There's definitely a lot more. We're getting ready to go track. We're going to finish this new record now next week, and so it's the hard part for me is all the music I grew up listening to was all cheating and sad songs. I mean, a lot of that's why listen to that new Jake Worthington record. Same thing. He's in love. He's married, living the best day of his life, but all them songs are breakup songs because that's what our heroes sang. But no, there's definitely inspiration for a lot more of that stuff. And I mean, even 1-2 Step Away, I know it's kind of a tongue-in-cheek kind of dancing song, but it's just, I have a reason to really believe them and write them now.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and one other thing, David, that I wanted to just touch on real quick is the fact that, in that Texas music scene, and I was a huge fan of Trent's, years ago. And as you were saying, when he made the comment about, you got a lot of dudes, I'm thinking, wait a minute, this coming from the guy who wrote Beer Man and Dixie Rose Deluxes. And, well, he did have Daddies and Daughters. That was a really cute song. Right. But I remember Trent, Pat Green, Jack Ingram. There were all these guys in sort of that Texas music scene 20 some years ago. And I still remember, I think it was around 2006 or 7, Jack Ingram gets Best New Artist from the ACMs on like his 7th album, right. Which was funny. But I'm wondering with social media, and I love your social media, formats. I love watching the content that you put out. Do you think that helps maybe today in getting your music out kind of beyond that area? Whereas, those guys really didn't have that back then?
100%. It absolutely does. I always say the good thing about social media and this digital age is everybody can be heard. The bad news is everybody can be heard. So it's, it's a challenge because you've always got to find ways to stay out in front, and, it's just, you've got to be out there grinding away. And, even the publishing deal, I mean, they're always on me, more TikToks. And, me, we're road dog and we're on the road more days than we're not really at this point. And so there's only so much time you can make videos and do all that. But a lot of it is in this scene, there's no layer between you and the fans, which is what this new age of social media is doing. But getting out and truly playing for them, they're not seeing some video they can scroll by in 5 seconds. Even if they just came to a bar and we happen to be the band there, they're going to sit there and watch us. So we're just continuously throwing ourselves out there and showcasing. But the social media thing really helps because, it's going to algorithm you into people that like your kind of music and show them. And, you got 5 seconds really to make them keep listening or they're going to swap. So,
Well, it seems like it's going quite well for you with 8 number ones now. Congratulations on that.
thank you.
Another win in the, another check in the win box. Well, David, thank you so much for joining us. And we know that things are going to just continue to take off for you. And we're really glad that you took the time to come and chat with us.
I appreciate y'all having me. And hopefully this is the first of many.
Definitely. Don't forget about us now.
Absolutely not. Y'all are the first podcast to Zoom anything here in the new house, so I'll definitely remember this one.
Oh, and congratulations on the new home.
Well, thank you. It's been a work in progress, but we're getting there, but I appreciate it.
Yeah, it definitely takes time. Well, thank you so much for joining us. And folks, thank you for tuning in, and we'll see you next week.
Call me up at 2 a.m. I know that buzz is kicking in. I'm thinking, here we go again. Is it the whiskey or the wine that's got me somewhere on your mind? How it happens every time. Every time I'm getting tired of these drinking games, you start lying in that whiskey way, saying you're lonely, saying you want me, seeing what I might say. We both know that this is all pretend. It's the kind of game that no one wins. It just ain't fair, and I don't wanna play. I'm getting tired of these drinking games. I'm tired of playing by your rules. This ain't love and this ain't cool. It may be fun, but I ain't no fool. I ain't your fool. I'm getting tired of these drinking games. You start lying in that whiskey way, saying you're lonely, saying you want me, seeing what I might say. We both know that this is all pretend. It's the kind of game that no one wins. It just ain't fair, and I don't wanna play. I'm getting tired of these drinking games. We both know that this is all pretend. It's the kind of game that no one wins.